Among the widely used data collection methods is observation. Observation refers to a set of research methods wherein the emphasis is on capturing or describing the dynamic or temporal nature of behavior in the environment where it naturally occurs. This means that when the behavior is occurring in a given setting, the researcher is observing it. To collect data using observation, the researcher immerses himself or herself in a research setting. He lives in the setting, he attends the setting, and observes what is happening. This method of data collection is widely used in human sciences, where we have participants, human participants, and the settings vary considerably. The setting, for example, can be a classroom, it can be a church, a hospital, a prison, the street. These are situations or places in which behaviors happen and where different phenomena also take place. These can be observed by the researcher directly. Immersing oneself in the setting is followed or accompanied at the same time by a systematic description of that setting, the interactions in the setting, how people interact, the relationships, what kinds of relationships exist between people within the setting, the actions, it means what people do, and the events, etc., within that setting. The aim of observation is to provide careful description of the subject's activities without influencing the events in which the subjects are engaged. The researcher does not exert any manipulation in the context. He only observes. This method offers an investigator the opportunity to gather live data from naturally occurring social situations. Situations like home, a work environment, the street, and so on. The use of observation enables the researcher to gather data or information on a variety of settings. And here we have types of settings. This is related to the goal of the study, the objective of the researcher. The first type of setting is the physical setting. For example, the physical environment and its organization. In some types of research, the physical environment is important, like in cultural studies. The researcher may be interested in the objects themselves which exist in the environment and how they are arranged, how they are organized. The task of the researcher is to provide a description of this physical setting. Another type of setting is the human setting. This means the organization of people, for example, within a family or within a tribe. The characteristics and makeup of the groups, how the groups are formed, or the individuals being observed, for instance, in terms of gender or class. The description of human settings permits the researcher to gather information on social groups. The third type of setting is the interactional setting. This is related to interaction within a group. The interactions that are taking place, whether they are formal, informal, whether they are planned, unplanned, whether they are verbal, non-verbal, and so on. For instance, in an educational study, the interest of the researcher can be in the type of interaction between the teacher and the pupils, or the type of interaction between the pupils themselves, or what is called peer interaction. This can be described by the researcher, and it's always related to the goal of the study. This means that the research objectives dictate the type of setting that should be the focus for the researcher. Sometimes the setting can be a program setting, especially in educational contexts. For instance, the researcher is interested in evaluating programs, and here he can provide a description of the resources used in the program, the way they are organized, the pedagogical styles, the teaching styles, the curricula, the syllabi, and their organization. All these are part of the program setting, which can be described using observation. Let's talk now about the types of observation. Observation is a set of methods. It means that observation is not always done in the same way. As it is the case with interviews, observations can be classified into structured, unstructured, and semi-structured. This is related to one point which has already been described in interviews. It is a matter of the degree of control the researcher has over the content of the observation, or in other words, preparing categories to be looked for in a given setting, whether the researcher prepares categories or whether he just describes or observes from a fresh angle. Thus, observation can be structured, unstructured, or just semi-structured. We take the structured observation type. This type involves determining in advance what is being looked for. The observation categories are worked out beforehand. They are prepared beforehand in the form of a checklist. So the researcher has already in mind a picture, and he tries to verify whether certain categories do exist in the setting or they do not exist. The use of the checklist permits the researcher to tick when he observes the behavior or when he sees the category that he is looking for. He uses a check mark. This is an easy and a rapid way to gather data.